We're going to talk about fire outbreaks. They have become rather persistent of late, especially because of the weather, but also signposting some of the gaps we have regarding the system put in place to address those fire incidents from Kaduna, Jos, Adamawa, Maiduguri, where we've had two separate incidents this year, and most recently also over the IDP camps, as well as one of the markets that was recently affected here in the Federal Capital Territory. The most recent one was, of course, the embassy, which was a contained fire incident, even though there were fatalities recorded, but also that blaze at Barnex that burned down the Samsung headquarters here in Nigeria. So we're going to talk about some of those incidents and what the establishment that's been put together to address those incident is doing to enlighten members of the public about what they need to know, certain security tips or measures that they can use in emergency situations to address those concerns. Now, joining us in the studio is the National Public Relations Officer of the Federal Fire Service, Assistant Controller of Fire, Patrick Abraham, is joining us this morning on Daybreak. Good morning to you, and thank you very much for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure. Paul Abraham.
Paul Abraham.
Yes.
Paul Abraham. Okay. Appreciate you very much for joining us on the program. Let's start the conversation this way. Give Nigerians an understanding why fires are usually, fire incidents are usually on an increase this time of the year.
Okay, well, as to why fire breaks on the increase at this time of the year, it's simply because we're in the dry seasons, the Harmattan season. And professionally, we understand that there's a fire triangle, which is heat, fuel, and oxygen. And at this time of the year, where you have fluctuation in weather, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it goes cold, you know, so those triangles are easy to come together. And once they come together, fire is inevitable. So that will explain why you have a lot of fire incident at this time of the year.
And give us a, you know, the nature of the fire incidents that we usually have in the country. How would you describe? How would you describe the nature of the fire incidents?
Well, from our data repository center, at the end of the second quarter of this year, we've had 1,096 fire calls, and of these 1,096 fire calls across the country, the center is putting cost of fire at approximately 70% electric fire.
All right.
You know, and then other domestic fire, maybe more out of negligence, you know.
Unsupervised
cooking, bush burning. Again, the weather is hot, the grasses are dry, people are doing games, hunting and all of that. So it's, you know, and then some people are just doing bush burning. They want to maybe clear up a particular space, and then the fire can escalate because it's unsupervised. Yeah.
Okay, so I remember on several occasions where I have to go with the Federal Fire Service to do some sensitization. How deep is this sensitization in some of the, you know, grassroots areas, and how efficient are some of this equipment for, you know, controlling fire? How efficient has, you know, teaching these people, enlightening these people, usage of this fire equipment been so far from your assessment, actually?
Okay, well, thank you. We have been doing a lot of sensitization, that's not in doubt, across the country. Normally, when we get into the dry season, we flag off what we call the Fire Week. The Fire Safety Week is a program designed by the service under the supervision of the Controller General himself, Engineer Jaji Olola Abdughanyu. And the essence of the Fire Safety or Fire Week sensitization program is to see how we can bring fire awareness, you know, to everybody, because fire concerns everybody. And as to the grassroots, we try to deploy, of course, first, indigenous languages. So I can tell you that sometimes in late September into early October, we started the Fire Week. campaign across the country. So every state command, every zonal command, you know, they go to religious places, marketplaces, schools, you know, and all of that. And the essence is just to, again, re-educate the people. They turn out and the feedback, it's good because people are becoming more and more aware, because I mean we're becoming to experience a global village. So when fire happened in Abuja, if it's some 10, 15 years ago, you may not even hear in Lagos. Or if fire happens in Kaduna, you may not hear in Abuja. But it's not the same anymore. We have been able to get this data because we have a data repository center, and then, you know, the social media, you understand? So everybody, a lot of people are becoming more and more aware. So when we go to community leaders, market women associations, and all of that, I can say that it's been impactful.
And looking at, you know, the Nigeria's history with dealing with incidents like this, what are some of the common mistakes people make when trying to put out fires from your experience before help arrives?
Okay, I think that for us at the service, very recently, the Controller General again came up with an initiative in partnership with Holysys. Holysys is a fire safety system organization, so it's like a PPP. Right. And because Controller General believes, and this is his mantra when he came to office, and he's seen that through, that fire prevention is cheaper, is easier, and is safer than firefighting. You know, so if you prevent fire, you will save government and our organization, you know, the deployment of huge resources in the first place. And this prevention, like they said, is, I mean, it's better than cure. So, and I think that that's one area that we need to look at. So I was talking about Holysys. Holysys is coming up with a technology that we're migrating to our platform, you know, and it's going to be, it's a machine-to-machine communication. The Ministry of Interior, as I'm talking to you, is already on that platform. The essence is that your smoke detector, like I can see there, you know, and other first aid fire equipment, when migrated, can communicate to us. Because one of the challenges we've always had is when we get, our time starts when we get the call. But most people's time starts when they see the fire. Okay, so there's always a gap between when the fire starts and when fire service is contacted. But the machine-to-machine communication is going to remove that gap.
Reduce the time frame.
Okay, so when you get an escalated temperature, we get activated. So we give you a call to say, are you at home? We can, you know, get this. You talked about Kaduna, Sokoto, and all of that. Even
so that brings me to the question, anytime there's fire anywhere, and let's say the media goes to cover, what we get to hear is, we've called the fire service for a very long time and they're just arriving. So what are some of those challenges that the fire service encounter before getting to the scene of the incident?
I'll answer that question in two flanks. One of it is we call the fire service and they're just arriving. You know, when they tell you they call the fire service, you're not sure what time they call the fire service. So I'll give you an incident which we're all very familiar with. The Samsung fire, which you mentioned just shortly. You know, we got a call. The Samsung fire started in the building, okay, from the strong room. If you remember, the same building was used before by a bank. So it had several strong rooms. And one of those strong rooms was converted into their store where they keep maybe sensitive materials and all of that. Now, that fire started from there. When we got the call at 7:35 p.m., we turned out Gariki, which is about 7 minutes away. And then we turned out Wuse, which is about 5 minutes away, considering that that is a major economic hub on Aminu Kano.
Right.
Okay? And I'll tell you on good authority, our men arrived there at 7:40. Okay? But this is what happened. Hoodlums barricaded the road and say that we cannot access. The essence is that when fire happens, while you're coming to attend to mitigate loss, hoodlums are there thinking that they can steal. So, and considering that it's a showroom with several gadgets and all of that, they thought it was something they could just go in, you know, and
there was a possibility of looting.
Right. But that could not happen. Okay. So what did we do when we got there at 7:40 and we saw the barricade and stones and all of that? We took a detour and immediately called the Commissioner of Police, who deployed the Metama police station. Okay, and then some members of the civil defense were also deployed. So this time we're now coming with them as pilots, and that is how we're able to assess. A
similar situation happened, I think, just over a week ago in Taraba, and you know, unfortunately, we're also hearing, you know, security concerns like this before your men access it. What is the standard operating procedure, especially between you and the police, in terms of dealing with hoodlums? Because I don't think this is a new phenomenon. Whenever there is a fire, people sometimes pretend to want to help, but they're just trying to loot in some of these instances where business establishments are affected. What systems have you developed to get rid of this? Because it also affects the response time to which you have to deal with the fire.
Yes. The civil defense, for example, we're from the same ministry, so we have a very cordial relationship in this regard.
Yeah. Joint activity or task force?
Not a task force, like to pilot us to the scene of fire.
Okay.
So when we receive a call, especially areas that we know are sensitive, market fire, you have a tendency for hoodlums to want to loot. The type we talked about in Samsung, you had those tendencies because you can just tell the terrain. It's an area where you go, you need to be careful with your phones and all of that because they're just there. So we have this partnership where they should help pilot us. But we have a challenge. What is the challenge? For every fire station we have, we don't have a crop of officers, either police or civil defense, on the ground. So what happens is that when we receive the call, we make to get to the scene while reaching out to civil defense or police. It's okay, there's a fire call, we're heading in this direction, please could you deploy? Remember, we don't have control over that deployment. So if we get there and there are no challenges, of course, we go in and fight fire. But if we get there and there are challenges, we are not armed. So the only thing we can do is to do a detour and wait for them, who are supposed to give us some security cover.
I would have thought that your men would be trained in the art of, crowd control, for instance.
Yes, we do crowd control. That's what we're talking about. Is not crowd control. We're talking about hoodlums with machete, with sticks, with stones. I'll give you a scenario. In person, I was coming down the Jonathan Boulevard bridge towards AYA, and there was a station, Volkswagen station wagon on fire. As I was descending, I saw it was on fire. I took out my phone, I took out my phone and called the control room of the Federal Fire Service. I also called the PRO of the FCT Fire Service and said, there's a car fire under the bridge here in AYA. Okay, I was with two of my friends. They said, okay, let's go now. I said, no, I want to see the response time because everybody has always raised response time. Interestingly, our men got there in 5 minutes. While I was waiting for 5 minutes for them to arrive, after my call, I was going around. People were making videos and taking pictures. And I asked them, I said, okay, have you called fire service? They said, no, what didn't concern me. See, VIO now, made them call fire service. Madam, you're doing video. Have you called fire service? Okay, no get their number. Have you called fire service? Okay, fire service is supposed to be here since now.
Does it have something to do with your sensitization, not getting to where, a lot of people?
No. Right now I'm on TV. If you ask me, this is sensitization. We go to schools within the FCT. We're in partnership with the FCT Primary Secondary Education Board. So we go to schools. We're in marketplaces. The same, Kano, we've been to Banex and all the neighboring complexes to talk about fire. Okay, I think first and foremost is when you come and talk about fire, people just feel it will not happen to me. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. It will not happen to me. Okay, so but beyond that, it's just the I would just say it's just the general attitude, of a certain class of people. Okay, so when it happens, the man who was doing video, I wonder, what is he going to do with that video? And I'm sure that the content that may be put out shortly is that CEO, fire is burning here, we didn't see fire service. Did you call them?
Well, one of them, in her defense or in his defense, as you said, they said, we don't have, she doesn't or he doesn't have the number to call. Let's talk about those hotlines and what Nigerians know about them. How often do people actually utilize them, and how well do people know them, and why are they not everywhere, billboards across the street, so that people who miss out on your campaigns can easily know that in case of a fire, I know who to call. I mean, 911 is popular across the world because it's always in the movies, and it's easy to remember. I mean, these are 3 digits. So what can you tell us about those emergency numbers and how visible it is to most Nigerians across the country?
Now, the emergency numbers, like we all know, once you call the emergency number, we have a national emergency number, which if you call, depending on the peculiarity of your case, it is routed. And again, because maybe the literacy level of our people, so when they call the emergency number and say, okay, hello, this is the national emergency number, what's the situation? They said, okay, there's fire or there's theft. It's okay, please hold on, let me transfer you to the appropriate office. They lose.
It's not a toll-free line, is it?
It's toll-free.
It's toll-free.
The national emergency number is toll-free.
Right.
Okay, but that waiting time, they don't. Sometimes I wonder if they even understand the grammar.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. I mean, we know of Nigeria's challenges, educationally speaking. We know of the literacy level, for instance. Why aren't we diversifying our options, especially speak in also some of the popular dialects that people are well aware of? I mean, we always talk about Wazobia, for instance, right? Most people are either Yoruba or Igbo or understand Hausa, right? Why is that option not there? Just in case people don't know how to communicate the situation in English, for instance.
Well, that's a conversation that's ongoing because, like I said, the national emergency number, has a lot of stakeholders: the police, road safety, fire services, civil defense, even the military, as the case may be. Everybody, NEMA and all that. So it has a lot of stakeholders, of course, through the NCC. But be that as it may, so it's a conversation that is ongoing, and I'm sure that in no distant time we will get to that point. What we did at the Federal Fire Service is to provide an alternate number, which is our control room number. That one, you're just one call away. You don't need any routing or whatever. And once you call that control room number, which is based here at the headquarters, we can turn out any fire station across the country because we have a special log, we have special numbers and links, to turn them out.
Can we have that number if you have it?
Yes,
here
yes,
for our viewers, please.
Okay, for the control room number of the Federal Fire Service is 080-3200-3557. I'll take it one more time: 080-3200-3557.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the mistakes now. I know that a lot of people make mistakes by taking pictures and all of that. So what can we do in a case of fire, maybe in an environment, in a house or anything? What can we do? I'm asking this because I was amazed by a sensitization that I saw. I think it was sometimes last year, about what you can do to actually put out fire before you can call the fire service in. So what are those things that we don't do and let the fire escalate beyond control before the fire service actually comes in?
Okay, the things we don't do is, first, we don't have our first aid firefighting gadgets handy.
But even if we do we know how to use them?
Yeah, so let's start from having them so that we now go to how to use them. For the extinguisher, okay, if you have your extinguisher handy and there's a fire incident, okay, remember fire, again, always have a starting point and has a base. We call it base. That's the actual place where the fire is started from. That's what we refer to as the fire base, okay? So for the extinguisher, we have an acronym which we call PASS. P-A-S-S. What does it mean? Okay, when you carry your extinguisher, the P means you pull out the pin. There's always a pin that's attached to it. you pull out the pin. Okay? The A, you aim at the base or the seat of fire. Right? Then what do? You have a nozzle. Okay? You press, you squeeze the nozzle. That's the S. Okay? You know? And then you sweep.
The base.
At the base or the seat of fire. Okay? So you pull the pin, you aim at the base, you squeeze your nozzle, and then you sweep.
So it's not just like pointing the nozzle on the fire
On the
directly,
flames.
on the flames directly.
Yes, because a lot of times you see people just, you know, on the flames. You have to go to the seat,
The base of the fire.
base of the fire, and then that's where you're going to be sweeping from one end to the other.
All right. As we were having this conversation, you know, someone sent in a text asking why you do not have your own office space, for instance, in Gombe, where your team is stationed in a filling station, which brings us to the conversation about the scale of the infrastructure we have available to fight fire in this country. What are some of the gaps in terms of capacity for the Nigeria Fire Service, for instance?
Well, one of the gaps is that we don't have enough manpower. Right. Yeah, at the moment we have less than 7,000 firefighters
Across the country.
at the Federal Fire Service.
Okay,
Across the country, if you put state fire services, you know, together, local government, even private fire stations, we may have a little above 20,000 compared to our land space, compared to our population. You know, so we don't have enough manpower. We hope that in the nearest future, we're able to build up that manpower by recruitment.
But
another thing is...
What is fire service doing actually about... sorry, I had to take you back to the Banex incident. I know that, you know, when the fire outbreak happened with I think it's a cash and carry, yes. One of the people we actually spoke to talked about, you know, there's a fire station here, but when it comes to doing their job, there's some kind of lapses. And for Banex, where we have a lot of businesses that, you know, is prone to fire, a lot of people are expecting that we have a fire station there. Does that have to do with the manpower as well?
No, in this case, I was in Banex fire. I was there at 9 p.m. and I was there till 4 a.m. in the morning. Okay, I even sustained, I have my lower limb, I got injured in that process.
Hazard of the job, I guess.
Yes, so I was there in person. And immediately that happened, you know, the Samsung fire that happened, Samsung is sitting in, it's bordered by the left, okay, how I'm sitting now, by the right with a filling station.
Yes,
and
eternal.
then by the right, or by the left, how I'm sitting now, an incomplete building. Right behind them is a hotel, you know. So when that fire happened, and you remember that everything in that building is fuel. The television, the gas cookers, the refrigerators, the phones, everything, computers, is fuel. So we kept putting pressure on that fire and ensure that we curtail it to that building. Now, after that incident, the Controller General had a very lengthy conversation with the minister. And immediately the minister approved the deployment of machines to economic hubs across the country. Okay, what we refer to as a rapid response truck. We have some smaller trucks, they're not those massive. We have them, they just came into the country. We don't have enough, but at least we had 15, which the minister just commissioned. So he approved immediately the deployment of those trucks. So we went to Banex. I was part of the team, and it was headed by the ACG in charge of operations, Tambari Mazu. And we had a meeting with the complex owners from the whole of Aminu Kano. And we said, look, we have the approval to deploy a rapid intervention to this economic hub, considering the resources that is seated here. All you guys need to do is come together and provide a 200 square meter space where we can build a reception and then park the truck. That conversation is ongoing.
It's surprising that the government is asking for space, because we understand that, you know, as far as the constitution is concerned, people hold the land in trust for the government because all land belongs to the government. So doesn't that complicate the conversation? You're asking businesses to forgo spaces, and we know that it's unlikely going to happen, you know.
Yes, you're right. The government is the owner of all the space. If you go to Aminu Kano, that's a full-blown city, if you ask me. You go there now and you take down a complex because you want to put fire service. Remember, it will go through a lot of administration. We're talking about a stopgap provision so that if anything happens on Aminu Kano, our men can redeploy immediately, right? So it's a stopgap arrangement. So if we go into, okay, government wants to take over a particular space and then put fire service, you know, we have to go to FCT minister, we have to now go to government control, we have to identify the complex.
Which is still government.
Which is still government, yes.
Right.
But it's not as easy as said. Because now the owners of that particular complex say, why my own complex? They just want to take down my business. So, but we say, look, let us have a makeshift arrangement where we can at least deploy this truck. Because we can't just keep the truck and the men under no cover.
Okay. Okay. Just before we go, AC, let's get your tips for the holiday season.
Yes.
We know there's going to be some fireworks, you know, across the country. What would you recommend for Nigerians to prevent, you know, fire outbreaks this season?
Firstly, I will say that please don't do fireworks. The type that we did when we were a lot younger, you know.
I'm sure somebody said you don't also.
the weather is, I mean, the weather is very hot, you know, and we're also part of the global community. And so global warming is here. So the tendency that fire can escalate, it's very likely, you know.
So what's like the attack on firemen now? Because I know that, you know, there's this amplified voices from the fire service against attack on their men. So how's it now?
I will say that up until yesterday, firemen were attacked in Kubwa.
Wow.
Yesterday, I was in the office, I was called, firemen were attacked in Kubwa. Okay? I was telling you about the AYA thing. By the time our men arrived, 5 minutes after I called them, nobody doing videos or taking pictures called them, they were attacked.
Right.
You know? So it's something that is, we must again continue to campaign against, you know, and discourage people from doing that. And we hope that we will actually, 2 guys were arrested in Oyo, and they're still standing trial for that.
Okay.
So we're deploying with the hope that we'll get more corporates and maybe it will serve as deterrent. Okay,
we're going to have to anchor the conversation here for now, but also circle back to it in the near future, because this is a recurring decima that we have to address. But for now, thank you most kindly, National Public Relations Officer of the Federal Fire Service, Assistant Controller of Fire, Paul Abraham. We really appreciate you for stopping by on Daybreak.
Thank you very much.